One hot morning while I was at home doing chores, an unusual but fun event occurred. I usually clean my house quickly because I am usually alone, my husband is at work and my children are at school. I play music at full volume and get rid of the rags that I carry while I move around the house with total freedom. If you liked the content, subscribe, it's free and you help us a lot to continue creating videos. On that particular morning I was immersed in my work with the music echoing throughout the place and I didn't notice the doorbell. It turns out that a friend of my husband's came to return the lawnmower that we had lent him a few days before. He didn't get an answer on the phone and after ringing the doorbell several times, he decided to leave the lawnmower in the back garden. It was then that when he was passing by the dining room he saw me through the window cleaning and walking to the rhythm of a lively song. He watched me for a long time, surprised by the scene while I sang and moved to the rhythm of the music. He watched me from outside without me noticing his presence. It was then that I discovered and got scared. He hid a little and I covered myself with my hands and put on a nightgown before going out to find out what was happening in the garden. When I saw him I greeted him with surprise. "Hello Alan, what were you doing at the window?" He came to return the lawnmower we lent him over the weekend. He rang the doorbell several times, but when he got no answer he assumed there was no one at home and left the machine in the yard. He told me it seemed strange to see movement inside the house and he watched for fear of an intruder. I joked that he was a burglar, to which he responded humorously, but then invited me to have a drink inside the house to cool off from the heat. When we got inside the house I offered him a cup of lemon juice and they served me too, and he was sitting there. I realized how much for him it was because he is an extrovert, but it was not a recent incident. I assured him that I would not tell my husband. To reassure him he finally admitted that this was part of his concern, but also confessed that he could not get the image of me out of his head. Seeing so relaxed I tried to minimize this. I assured him it was no big deal, but he insisted, mentioning that he was surprised by some aspects of my appearance. Although I assured him they were exaggerations, however, he continued to insist on his admiration. He also changed the subject, which made me nervous at that moment. When he got up to leave I noticed that he was obviously excited, which caused me an intense feeling, although it also made me a little embarrassed. I had never received so many compliments before, not even from my husband. By the expression on his face I knew he had noticed it, so I mischievously commented to him that the tin soldier looked ready for combat. Alan did not hesitate for a moment and approached me to give me a kiss that left me stunned. My lips opened a little and I let myself get carried away by the moment. Although I do not usually do so suddenly, I found myself kneeling as if I was about to ask for forgiveness, and what happened next was a big surprise. I could not believe what was about to happen. Even my husband could hardly surprise me with half of what was happening, what Alan had just. I wasn't able to fully understand it. I wasn't sure how to approach the game with the tin soldier since it was smaller than my husband's, being a miniature version. I usually didn't play with my husband's tin soldier much, so I was nervous when I started playing with this majestic tin soldier, borrowed from my husband's friend Alan. I opened my mind and started to be creative. I spent a few minutes playing with it in my living room. Although I had a feeling of guilt quickly overcame me when I realized that we hadn't invited my husband to play at that moment. Alan took me by the hand and lifted me up, distressed by the situation. His were the most sincere and profound I've ever received in my life. Soon he was kneeling before me, asking for forgiveness. I offered him my doll to play with and somehow it seemed to ease his pain. I was delighted to be able to be a support to ease his emotional burden. Although at some point the concern arose in my mind that I was being selfish with my husband since I didn't share my doll with him or ask to borrow his tin soldier. This guilt disappeared more and more as I got deeper into the game with Alan. Our toys, his tin soldier and my doll, made a perfect team as we played on the couch, experiencing thrills that felt like a roller coaster of fun. I felt at the top of that mountain, a sensation new to me but surprisingly coordinated with Alan. "Are you ready? Do you like how I play with you?" Alan asked, to which I replied enthusiastically, "Yes Alan, I loved it. Let's play." Most of the time I didn't know exactly why, but our game had a touch of madness. That made it special and unique. You are beautiful. I was not mistaken in thinking that playing with you would be fun. I loved it," he said, expressing his satisfaction. At that moment I felt like I had won the jackpot. Yes, I understand perfectly that the connection we share is unique. Our imagination seems to have no limits. The toy container you have makes the tin soldier fit perfectly, which adds an extra thrill to the game. Thankful that you invited me to play at your house. I was surprised that we were actually playing, you and me, in your living room with his tin soldier in my container. I was excited to the limit. It was a wonderful experience, one of those. It was rare that Alan was also excited at that moment. He offered me a cup of natural yogurt that he had brought for me. We sat on the couch so I could savor that delicious treat. The snack was so rich and creamy that I honestly loved it. It was the beginning of an unusual game with my husband's friend. After that extraordinary experience, I found myself immersed in a new world that I had ignored for so many years. I had my toy container without exploring its possibilities. And now, like many of the best things in life, I discovered this world by pure chance. I have no intention of wasting this opportunity in the future. It's amazing. What do you think? I look forward to your comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share. It's free and helps me a lot. See you next time.